Today we're going to be discussing environmental science, which in general is human dependency on our ecosystems and what we do to hurt them. So we are focusing more specifically on how ecosystems change, how humans have impacted the planet, looking at the relationship between humans and the environment, relating the concept of sustainability to the future of our planet, or in general terms, how to fix what we have broken. First off, succession is when an environment changes. When species come and go from an ecosystem, all of the interactions within that ecosystem changes, and therefore the community changes. So basically, how one community replaces another. There are two different types of succession, primary and secondary. The main difference being how they start. Primary, which is first, succession begins where it is the first growth in an ecosystem. So it begins on bare rock. Secondary succession is when there has already been growth in an area but it has been disturbed by flood or fire. So it is the second growth of an area. There are also, within these two different types, a few stages. The first stage is when plants easily dispersed grow and flourish. These are known as colonizing plants. They're usually very small plants like mosses and ferns. The second stage is when the larger perennials replace those smaller, so you have more of the shrub and bushes. Then the third major stage is when the trees come in, because these take longer to grow, so therefore they need to come in the later stages. This gives you a picture of the sequence of stages of a taiga biome, which you have already discussed in previous classes, is a biome that has many spruces and firs and pines. So as you notice, as it gets further and further up the stages of succession, you end up with a lot of your evergreen trees. And from this picture, you can see the different stages and different types of succession. Now that we know how an ecosystem changes, we can look at how we are changing various ecosystems and causing problems in them. So the major problems that we are causing is the fact that our population is increasing. We have chemical pollution. We are depleting our ozone layer, increasing carbon dioxide, which is all caused by humans, and all cause the ultimate global warming. So basically, if you look at this graph, you can see how fast humans are growing. They are growing at a rate of 80 million people per year. We are taking over so many different places because we're running out of space to live. Now, when we actually take over places, we are destroying habitats. We are creating urban areas from our forests, and rainforests are being destroyed, and we are creating habitat fragmentation. We're also overusing our resources, so we're no longer using them on what's known as a sustainable basis. Habitat fragmentation becomes a huge problem because, as you see, habitat fragmentation is when roads are built in between areas that animals live in, so over their migration route. So when they try to migrate from their winter area to their summer area, they have to cross the street. As the lovely picture of the bear and car show, this is not a good thing. And you will stop for a bear and a moose and a deer, but oftentimes you don't notice the other smaller animals that are crossing, and this is causing huge problems with our animals, and therefore mass extinction is currently underway. We are losing about 3 species per hour. Not per day, not per year, per hour, which is causing a huge biodiversity crisis, all due to humans taking over so many different places that the animals have nowhere to go. We're also increasing chemicals in our ecosystems through agriculture chemicals as well as others. A particular agriculture chemical is known as DDT. DDT caused a huge problems for bald eagles many years ago because we would spray it as a pesticide on our crops. It would get into the soil and into our oceans, and then into our fish, which fish didn't necessarily die due to the DDT, but because bald eagles would eat a whole bunch of fish, then the DDT would get into the bald eagles, and then the bald eagles would lay very fragile eggs, and and those birds would no longer be able to hatch. So the bald eagle became an endangered species. This is a picture of what biological magnification means, and as you see, if you have it in very spread out in your algae, but as you move up in the food chain, it becomes more and more concentrated, kind of the opposite effect of the energy, because you have a more concentrated amount of DDT in each level. Next problem is our ozone hole. Ozone, which is O3, is actually naturally occurring and was created as the Earth was being created. But when we started spraying a lot of aerosol, chlorofluorocarbons, which was part of that, CFCs, destroy the ozone. And so we were spraying too much of it, and we are destroying our ozone, and we now have an ozone hole that is bigger than North America. We are slowly fixing this problem because chlorofluorocarbons were banned, but it is still not being fixed fast enough, and the ozone protects us from UV light. So with this ozone hole, we are getting too much UV light hitting our Earth, which causes cancer and cataracts and various other health issues. One of the last problems that the increased human population is causing is an increase in carbon dioxide, which also coincides with an increase of temperature because CO2 levels increase and trap the light and heat that comes through from our sun and doesn't let it leave our atmosphere. This is known as the greenhouse effect. So as we increase our CO2, we increase the trapping of our light and heat and therefore increase our temperature, as you see from the graph. Now, as temperatures increase, we also increase sea levels because as temperatures increase, guess what happens to our polar ice caps and our lovely polar bears that live up north is the fact that the sea levels will rise because the ice is melting. As you learned in chemistry, heat up ice and it melts. So these are all of our problems, and in order to fix these, we need to take some actions and learn whether we should conserve various places or restore them. And the major difference between these two is conservation is actually maintaining natural areas, and restoration is reversing our problems. So the upper picture of the beautiful waterfall is on a conservation land, which is an area that has specific rules for human use. You can basically just go on various nice hikes, and you are not to leave anything behind. You cannot take anything out, and it is just to appreciate nature, which it is quite lovely there. Restoration is when we try to fix major problems. So when we actually have destroyed an area and made it uninhabitable for various animals, we fix it and bring in new things for them to live. This just shows a few different examples of restoration and conservation that have occurred in the past couple of years. The most recent and closest is the Charles River Boston Harbor restoration, which if you have lived in the area for the past couple of years, you have noticed a huge change in the Charles River and Boston Harbor water health. And it has been a huge, huge help to that area. So as you see, we have been, everything has So this is the end of our ecology unit, and I hope you have realized how interconnected and combined everything must be, and you really can't have one part of this unit without the other. You can't have one part of the world without the other, or an animal without another one. So as you see, it is amazing and awesome.